F1 now, and Lewis Hamilton goes into the final day of testing following a successful day yesterday. He was only just slower than world champion Sebastian Vettel. Well, it was the first time Hamilton had driven the 2012 McLaren in anger, and the former world champion got 80 laps of the Spanish circuit under his belt. He ended up just a tenth slower than Vettel. Vettel finished third fastest behind Nico Rosberg in the 2011 Mercedes and Lotus's Romain Grosjean. But Vettel admits the new Red Bull took some getting used to.
In the morning it was quite slippery, and it does take a little while to get back into the rhythm and mainly to understand the car. So that was priority today for me. Find the rhythm and try to understand what the car needs, so that we can hopefully push the development in the right direction.
Every year you arrive and you never know what to expect, but you always hope for a good platform to start from and something that the team can build on. And I think after today I feel quite positive with where the car is at the moment, and confident that the guys can push it forward.
IndyCar champion Dario Franchitti believes Paul di Resta is a future Formula One world champion. The Force India driver finished his rookie season 13th, but Franchitti is convinced the Scot can improve on that this year.
Paul di Resta may be one of just 24 F1 drivers in the world, but there's a bigger race name in the family. 4 times IndyCar champion Dario Franchitti's his cousin. There's no rivalry, except maybe on the gym treadmill.
Definitely when we're in the gym we try and push each other.
So is one of you fitter than the other? Who's quicker at the moment?
He's younger than me.
I was just going to say, he's got a bit too much drag with his hair as well.
While Franchitti's relaxed around the paddock, there's been little rest for di Resta. After 100 laps on day one of testing, he was amongst the pace setters. But with a mid-budget team, does he face a season in the shadow of Hamilton and Button?
Anybody that knows anything about Formula One knows you're really as good as the car you're in. Jensen and Lewis have obviously been very, very successful, especially since Jensen got into McLaren and with Braun before that. So, but I think Paul's got all the potential in the world. Put him in the right car, he'll win the world championship.
Before opting for IndyCar, Franchitti test drove for Jackie Stewart's F1 team in 2000. He failed to secure a race seat.
Dario probably wanted to be a Formula One driver when he was younger, but I'm sure he wouldn't go back and know what he's achieved with the double Indy 500 wins and equally the 4 championships. I've got a lot of respect for that, and I hope I can be as successful as he has over here.
Franchitti outdid legendary Scot Jim Clark by winning the Indy 500 twice. Achieving a fraction of Clark's F1 success would put di Resta right up there with his cousin. Craig Slater, Sky Sports.
On now, and it's the final day of testing at Jerez, and we're going live to Rachel Brooks, who's there for us. Rachel.
Well, I'm standing in the paddock at the moment on the final day of this first winter testing session. It's been an interesting week so far, that's for sure. And I'm joined right now by Ted Kravitz from the Sky Sports F1 channel. And Ted, let's start off with what the teams could have learnt this week so far. And they have one more day out on the track today. What could they still learn?
It's been a very valuable week for the teams. They've essentially learnt whether their season is going to be a long, hard slog or actually quite successful. They know whether their cars are more or less reliable, which most of them are, and they know whether they've got any terrible handling characteristics, which 1 or 2 have, but most are pretty well sorted by now.
And what about the drivers themselves? It's the first time they've been able to give the car a real go out on the track. What will they have learnt? And for the drivers that are going around today, a few tweaks, more demands off their team?
Yeah, now they need to start working on making the car faster. The first few days have been all about systems checks, have been about configuration of the car in various wing settings and making sure that the car on track is doing what the car model says it's doing in the wind tunnel back in the factory. So the drivers now are going to start looking for some speed, and I think we'll see some pretty quick times by the end of today.
We've seen from some teams a lot more laps under their belt than other teams. So who would you say has had a good week so far and who's had a bad week?
I think good week is the Lotus team. Red Bull, as always, they've got a fast car. It's been a good week for them. And McLaren seems to be a good week for Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button. Bad week so far, Force India. One of their drivers couldn't go out yesterday because the test driver crashed it into the gravel. That wasn't good for them. And Toro Rosso have also had a few problems there. And Williams are very slowly learning about their car. But it's essentially a learning process, and they'll catch up.
The buzz around here seems to be that Lotus have a good car this year. They have a real challenger this year. Would that fair to say?
Yeah, the Lotus seems to be generally a very stable car. They admitted they were running low fuel to do the fastest time of the 2012 cars yesterday, but even Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton said whatever fuel they're running, that is a quick car, and they should know because they're following the Lotus on track. They can see how it behaves. But I think also a good day yesterday for Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. They learned that their cars have a stable platform, not as much downforce as last year because of some of the rule changes, but effectively we should expect to see the same big players in it next year.
And we haven't mentioned Ferrari yet. We're stood by the Ferrari motorhome with the trucks in the background to us. They haven't done as many laps. Alonso only getting out for 67 laps of the circuit yesterday. That's going to be frustrating for him, surely. Yeah,
if it was a good day for Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, a bad day for Fernando Alonso. The car seems not to have pace at the moment, and it's not reliable. They had a hydraulics problem yesterday. That's the two things a team does not want in winter testing. You can be fast and unreliable. To be slow and unreliable at the same time is terrible. So Ferrari have got a lot of work still to do.
Although some of that work will get underway shortly here. They'll get back out on the track at 9 o'clock for the final day of this first winter testing session. And whatever they've found out, well, they then have 11 days because the second winter testing session starts in Barcelona on the 21st of February. But we'll be here all day to bring you updates and see just if Ferrari can get their car quicker and Alonso can get more laps under his belt. And we'll keep an eye on Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton as well.
Good start.
Formula One now, and it's the final day of testing at Jerez. We can go live to Rachel Brooks, who's been keeping an eye on everything pre-season. Rachel, what's the latest?
As you can probably hear, the cars are out on track now, and there's been some activity around this morning. We're by the Ferrari motorhome in the paddock right now. You can see their trucks behind us, and it's been a morning of comings and goings really here at Ferrari. We saw Fernando Alonso go out into the garage. And I'm joined now by Ted Kravitz from our Sky Sports Formula One channel, who is going to explain what's he been doing this morning, and we've seen a lot of movement around the Ferrari garage.
Well, Ferrari had a little hydraulic failure on the car yesterday, which meant they couldn't do more than about 6 to 8 laps at a time. They've modified some parts and they've flown them out on a private jet overnight from their base in Maranello in Italy, and they've arrived here this morning. They've managed to fit those parts, and they believe now the problem is solved, and Fernando Alonso at the moment is out on track, and he's just going to be wanting to prove to the engineers that everything is okay in that department. Once they do that, then they can start working on aerodynamic correlation, and that's important for Ferrari because that caught them out last year. Their wind tunnel was saying one thing, what the car was doing on track was saying something else.
How much of a setback is that for them? Because we've seen Red Bull and McLaren go well already so far this week. They do seem a step behind everyone else. Is this a big problem for them?
It's a problem. It's only a little problem. They're a big team, Ferrari, the most famous team in Formula One, been around since the start. They'll get this kind of thing sorted. What they might be concerned at is at the same time they're having little problems like hydraulics, Red Bull and McLaren are putting the miles on their car. Sebastian Vettel is out there at the moment. He will finish with his setup work shortly, and then he'll start putting some fast times in. As you can hear in the background, they're already starting to get on it here in Jerez.
It's a very cold morning. It's been cold all week. The drivers yesterday were saying that their hands are cold, and it was making it a bit of a tough session. Just what sort of impact does that have?
Yes, it is slightly uncomfortable for the drivers, very well-paid drivers. Maybe we shouldn't feel too sorry for them. But at the moment, it's only about 5 degrees, so they are travelling quite quickly. It does get a little chilly, but it warms up throughout the day. But the interesting thing about the drivers is how much work they have to do. Lewis Hamilton, if you might have seen some shots of Lewis Hamilton yesterday, and we caught an amazing shot of him in his McLaren, and he was going round quite quickly around the corners and fiddling with some dials on his McLaren, pressing some KERS buttons, that's the regenerative braking system, fiddling with the DRS, that's the movable rear wing, and changing some of the diff settings as well. So they're busy boys. Yes, their hands might be cold, but they've got plenty of activity to do to keep them warm in the car.
We were hearing that some of the teams were in the garage and holding heaters over them just to keep them warm, but when it actually comes to the races, it'll be fans they'll be holding over them to keep them cool. So different conditions here today. You mentioned Lewis there. We saw him yesterday, we spoke to him. He seems very happy, he seems very relaxed at the moment, doesn't he? Is that just because it's the start of the season, or do you think we really are seeing a Lewis of 2008 again?
I think it's cautious optimism for McLaren. With some of the rule changes, they've lost a lot of the downforce that they had last year. And Lewis Hamilton was saying, yes, the car is essentially okay, but in the fast corners, I'm not getting the downforce. I don't feel the car as stable as it was last year. He didn't feel particularly comfortable with that, but it's the same for everybody. Sebastian Vettel was saying precisely the same thing in his Red Bull. So that's something that they'll be working very hard on to recover that lost downforce for this season.
And McLaren last season obviously didn't make the first testing session, so they've made this one. They've actually done well at this one by when you look around at some of the other teams who struggled here. So they must be feeling pretty good right now. They're much better prepared for the season than they were last year.
They are, yes. It's looking for good for McLaren. Certainly it's looking good for them physically because they have the low nose. They don't have the step nose like everybody else. And they'll be relieved that that doesn't seem to be making the difference. They'll be relieved that they won't have to go back to the factory and build a car with a step nose like everybody else. Their way is working for them.
We're talking of relief, Ted. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm very relieved that the sun's coming out into this paddock and we might warm up a little bit by the time you join us next time. We're going to keep an eye on the cars and we'll let you know just who is doing what and just how many laps that Ferrari are managing to get under their belt, because that's got to be an aim for them today after doing fewer than everyone else yesterday. But stay with us all day and we'll bring you the latest here from Jerez.
We will do. Thank you. Formula One now, and it's the final day of testing at Jerez. Rachel Brooks is live there for us and across everything. Rachel, have you warmed up though? That's the question.
We have indeed, and we have the sun bearing down on us now. Still a bit chilly, but it is warming up nicely. I'm still in the paddock area, and to the left of me are all the engineering trucks here, and you can see the bright red of Ferrari. And I'm very pleased to say I'm joined right now by Luca Giuliani from Ferrari. Luca, have to talk to you about the time Fernando has just posted, the fastest in a Ferrari over the 4 days, a 1:19.2. Is this Ferrari trying to show some pace this morning?
No, we're going on with the work we wanted to do, which is mainly aimed to collect data about the behavior of the car. We said yesterday that we don't have to look at the stopwatch now because it's a work in progress phase, and we don't have to look at the stopwatch now because we have done 1 second less than yesterday, so nothing has changed compared to yesterday.
Has this reassured people within the team that you will have a car that will be competitive this season?
I mean, this is our target. I believe we have a good potential on the car. There's a lot of things to do because it's a brand new car for us with concepts we haven't used in the previous year car. So it needs a lot of fine-tuning on many areas, mechanical, aerodynamics and so on. And this session, these 4 days, really are aimed to that work. Then from the next one in Barcelona, we try to go on more on the performance side, even though we know that the verdict, we'll have it only in Melbourne in mid-March.
Some of the other teams posted some quicker times yesterday and they had consistent laps. Fernando only getting 67 in the car yesterday. Are you saying then there's no cause for concern at the moment? It's just far too early and this is purely, as you were saying, set up? And
I mean, I'm old enough Formula One to know that to be the fastest in the test doesn't mean anything. It doesn't give any point. It doesn't give any pole position. If you remember, or the people in the TV remember, last year the quickest car in Jerez was Rubens Barrichello, and Williams gained 4 points in 19 races. So time will tell.
So do you think now you'll be ready to start mounting your championship challenge from the first race? Do you think the Ferrari will be ready to mount that sort of challenge?
This is our target. I don't have any ball which helps to look at the future. We are working 200%. No more weekends for anyone in the factory because we want to give Fernando and Felipe a competitive car. It's going to be tough. We are all aware that it's going to be tough. There are a lot of things we need to fix. But we don't have to be concerned because in this session we were not the quickest car.
Pat Fry said after Tuesday's session with Felipe that he wasn't happy, or Wednesday's session, he wasn't happy with the way things were going or the way the car was performing. Is he a happier man this morning?
No, I mean, it's not that, drivers are competitive people. They won't always be in the front, but they know that the job we are doing here will give the outcome later on in the season. So I'm happy if the drivers are not happy for being in the second part of the ranking.
So did you have to let Fernando do a quick lap this morning just to keep him happy?
No, this is this is not Ferrari standard. We are just doing our job and not thinking about that.
Great. Well, Luca, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We will keep updating you here from Jerez as the day goes on with the times, but also how the cars are getting on the track. And do join us later for more of that.
Formula One news now. It's the final day of the first pre-season test at Jerez, and 9 teams involved today. Mercedes taking the day off, HRT and Marussia not involved, but plenty of eyes on Ferrari to see if they've solved that slightly worrying lack of pace over the first 3 days. So without further ado, let's cross live to Rachel Brooks in Jerez. Rachel.
Yes, David. Well, Ferrari Alonso has posted the fastest lap of the day. He's just about 0.4 behind Romain Grosjean, I should say, who posted the fastest time of the week here in Jerez. And we're just one of the cars leaving the pit lane right now. That's the Toro Rosso. That's Jean-Eric Verne, who's also been putting some pretty fast laps in today. He's second fastest of the day so far. But I'm joined now by sporting director at Caterham, Steve Nielsen. And Steve, I have to ask, how's your week been going here so far?
Pretty good, actually. Compared with this time last year, we actually did more laps on the second day than we did the whole of this test last year. So far, we're pretty happy.
Has that been your aim this week, just to get laps under the belt, see how the car goes, see what the driver's feedback is?
Yeah, it's very much about systems checks and getting the mileage up on all the parts and just making sure, really trying to break the car in race trim and just see what goes wrong so that we get all that stuff out of the way before we go racing.
And how have you been, how's the feedback from the first 3 days? You've got a final day here today. Are you pretty pleased?
Yeah, pretty pleased. As I say, we sort of have a job list each day, and so far we've been crossing the stuff off each day as we go along. Still a long way to go. Cars are never fast enough. Everybody will tell you they want to go quicker. But we're happy with our programme, and so far, so good.
Any major problems so far that have cropped up? Anything you weren't expecting?
Yeah, we had one really silly thing on the first day where the engine is started by putting a shaft in the back of the gearbox, and it actually stuck in the gearbox, so we had this crazy situation where we couldn't get the starter out the back of the car. We ended up cutting it off and it cost us a couple of hours. I've never seen that before, but sometimes these things happen.
So what happens now when we finish here at 5 o'clock today? What's next for you? I understand some trucks will go straight to Barcelona, but a lot of it will go back to the factory, and you've got a few days to turn around for the next test.
Well, we've actually got a filming day here tomorrow. So it's a little bit different for us. We'll prep the car again tonight, and then we'll run again tomorrow. But after that, as you say, the car will be sort of atomised into a million pieces, and it will go back to the UK and be rebuilt in a different spec for the next test in Barcelona.
Is there any difference at the second test? Is there any difference into what you're trying to do, or is it just progression from what you've been doing here?
Well, you learn stuff as you go along. We already know some stuff we want to change, some cooling things that we want to change. So every day you're thinking of new ideas to run and fixing existing problems. So yes, the car sounds crazy, but they're never built the same way twice. So the car that we take to Barcelona will be different in many ways than the car we've got here.
And I know the teams do watch each other, although you'll try and stick to your own car, but anything you picked up from other teams at all?
Not really. As I say, we're all doing our own stuff. There are cars with funny protrusions all over them, and some with what we call flow vis, where the teams are seeing if the wings are working. You try and work out what other people are doing, but with different fuel loads and different tyres, it's very difficult to really know, especially from one test. By the time we've done the 2 tests in Barcelona, we'll have a much better picture of where we stand compared with everybody else. So it's all about more running.
And just finally, there are lots of rumours doing the rounds that possibly Vitaly Petrov could be coming to join you, maybe with Jarno Trulli moving aside. Are we going to see a driver change before Melbourne at all?
Not that I know about, no. Our race drivers are Jarno and the other guy, Heikki.
Great. Well, Steve, thanks very much for joining us. I know it's a very busy time for you at the moment. We do appreciate your time today. That is the latest from us here at Jerez. I do hope you managed to hear us above the noise, but that's what Formula One is all about after all. Back to you.
Absolutely right, Rachel. Yes, we did. Thank you very much indeed. Sounds great.
Yeah, no distractions whatsoever. Nice and quiet there. OK, let's build up to what could be a very busy weekend in...
We're now to the final day of the first of 3 pre-season tests in Jerez ahead of the new Formula 1 season. Good day so far for the man that a lot of their home fans will be supporting, Fernando Alonso and his Ferrari team. Ferrari 2 seconds off the pace yesterday because of a hydraulic failure. Also, just basically understanding the car was difficult enough, but Alonso did set the fastest time this morning.
I believe we have a good potential on the car. There's a lot of things to do because it's a brand new car for us with concept we haven't used in the previous year car, so it needs a lot of fine-tuning on many areas, mechanical, aerodynamics and so on. And this session, these 4 days, really are aimed to that work. Then from the next one in Barcelona, we try to go on more on the performance side, even though we know that the verdict, we'll have it only in Melbourne in mid-March.
So Ferrari topping the timesheets in this morning's session, but Red Bull, McLaren and the former Renault team Lotus have also showed good pace this week.
Lotus seems to be generally a very stable car. They admitted they were running low fuel to do the fastest time of the 2012 cars yesterday, but even Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton said whatever fuel they're running, that is a quick car, and they should know because they're following the Lotus on track. They can see how it behaves. Red Bull, as always, they've got a fast car. It's been a good week for them, and McLaren seems to be a good week for Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button. Bad week so far, Force India. One of their drivers couldn't go out yesterday because the test driver crashed it into the gravel. That wasn't good for them, and Toro Rosso have also had a few problems there, and Williams are very slowly learning about their car, but it's essentially a learning process, and they'll catch up.
Now, the weather is taking its toll on this weekend's fixtures.
The final day of first pre-season testing at Jerez. Let's go live now to Rachel Brooks, who is there. Rachel, hi to you. 9 teams involved today. That includes Lotus. So how have they fared this week, Rachel?
Well, Jim, I should just mention that as it is Friday afternoon and the last day, teams are packing up and going home. So you may see the odd truck go past me as we speak, but it won't stop us telling you what's happened this week because it's been a good day. As you say, Lotus have done pretty well here this week. They've had some great times. Second best time came from Romain Grosjean in the Lotus, and he's also been consistently good today, and they've got lots of laps under their belt. They have mentioned a small water leak, but they said they know what it is, and it'll be fixed by the next test in Barcelona. Also a good day for Ferrari, but we'll come on to that in a moment because I'm very pleased to say we're joined by a member of the Lotus team, Jerome D'Ambrosio. He's their third driver here, their test driver. And have you been impressed with the car so far from what you've seen?
Yeah, definitely. I think we had a good first feeling with the car, the 2 race drivers and the whole team. It's definitely a good way to start the season. Now everything we have to be cautious, obviously, about what we read in the times, but definitely it's a positive. The car feels good, and that's the most important.
Yes, I mean, everyone goes on about the fact that you can't read too much into times, but it's the fact that you've got all these laps under your belt in this car and that nothing major's gone wrong that's got to be an important thing to take away from it.
Well, I think it is definitely, it's better to be at the front than at the back in terms of time, so that's for sure. On the other side, we've got many laps under our belts, and that's really important. I think in the first test like this, on a track we will not race on, is definitely one of the main targets, and I think we've achieved that. Very few issues, like you mentioned, just a water leak today, not major. So that's a very good point, and that's the most positive point of this week, really, for us.
And as a driver, what would you want to have got out of these 4 days? What will Kimi and Roman hope to have got out of these 4 days?
I think for both drivers, really, it's mainly getting back in it. Obviously, Roma and Kimi haven't been driving last year in Formula 1, so getting used to the curves, DRS, long runs, get a feel of the car, feel at ease in the car, see a little bit how it reacts to different setups. Obviously, not getting the last a couple of tenths out of the car, because that's not what you're doing here, but just be confident, learn the car, and this is the car that we'll have to race during the whole season, so make sure they're at ease in the car.
Do you think they've achieved that this week?
Yeah, I think, if you look at the times, they were quite reasonably good. On the other side, they both commented that the car is quite has a good balance, is quite neutral, and they've got many laps, each of them under the belt. So I think, yes, they've had a good week, productive week.
What's it like? I mean, Kimi obviously coming back to Formula 1, he's a world champion. What's it like having him around the team, and has he imparted any wisdom onto you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Kimi's been world champion, so you really, for me, I'm third driver. I've had some experience last year in Formula 1 in a smaller team, done the whole season. But being third in Lotus now and being able to have someone like Kimi to watch at, obviously to look at, it's a good thing for me. I'm looking at him because he's got experience. He's very fast. He's world champion. There's not much more to say about him. It's great to have him in the team.
And what about the other teams that you've seen today? I mean, we saw Ferrari off the pace yesterday and getting some criticism and some worry from their fans, and then suddenly today Fernando Alonso goes out and just gets the fastest lap of the day. I mean, is that pretty standard?
No, I don't know. I think you can read into what you do because as a team, because you know there's many parameters. You know the tires you're running, you know the fuel you're running, you know the program and everything. You don't know what the other ones are doing, so you kind of have an idea. But I think it's more important for a team to focus on himself at the moment and not on the others, because it's just a bit of a mess to try to understand what the others are doing.
From what you've seen here today over the last week as well, do you think it is going to be the three main teams, with you being one of their biggest challengers?
I think definitely again, like there's 3, 4, 5 teams at the moment that we're used to. I think Mercedes have not come with a new car yet, but the other 4, Ferrari, us, Red Bull and McLaren, they've been pretty good. But again, I think it's really too early to take any conclusions of this because the times are not always relevant. So I think we'll wait for Barcelona. We'll have some more indications, and definitely Melbourne. This is where it counts.
And for you, I mean, it must be pretty hard. I know you haven't been in the car yet, and to be here and to watch it going around, how difficult is it? How frustrating is it for you?
It's, on one way, there's different ways to take it. Obviously, it's a great opportunity for me because I'm back in the top team. As I think we understood this week, the car is quite good. How good exactly, we still don't know, but we're really happy with how the week has been going. And it's good for me to be part of a team like that. There's a positive spiral, 2 good drivers. So I definitely can learn a lot this year, and this is what I'm looking at. It is frustrating. I would lie if I'd say I'd be really happy when they're going to be at the start on the grid. I'll miss that definitely, but sometimes I think you have to take decisions and you have opportunities, and you have to take the decisions with your head and see what's best for your future, and this is definitely what we did, and hopefully we took the right one.
Well, we've seen some of the trucks going past as the breakdown starts here in the paddock. What do the drivers do between tests? Because we know that a lot of the equipment has to go on to Barcelona, and then the car will go back to factory for tweaks and adjustments. But for drivers, what do you do between now and Barcelona?
Officially, we're going back home training and spending time. No, seriously, we're going back home training. I think keeping fit is still a moment of the season that where you actually try to get fitter and fitter, because once the season starts, really you just don't have time really to improve your physical condition. You just have to try to maintain it during the season. And then obviously before Barcelona next week, there's meetings with the engineers at the factory, try to analyze in details what has happened this week and prepare Barcelona testing. So quite a lot to do. It starts to get quite busy now.
And maybe fit in a couple of days somewhere warmer.
No, we don't have time for that. I think that was a more. You need a bit of everything, obviously. I think drivers take normally couple days, week, 2 weeks off during December, and now we're back in it. I think we're all like that. It's good to sometimes have a break because we need it, but after a week or 2, you just want to get back to it because you miss it. You miss the racing, you miss to hear the noise, the engine. Speaking with the engineers, so this is not a period where you're thinking about having a break. It's a period where you're thinking about getting the car better and hopefully being good in Melbourne.
Well, Jerome, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you around the Formula 1 circuit this year, and as testing draws to a close, they've only got half an hour or so left on the track. We'll bring you the very latest later on and an update on the week, and if Ferrari have managed to hold on to the fastest time today, but it's Lotus who have the fastest time of the week. Back to you.
Rachel, thank you.
Ferrari and Fernando Alonso were fastest on the final day of the first pre-season testing week in Jerez ahead of the new Formula 1 season. Ferrari were 2 seconds off the pace yesterday because of a hydraulic failure, but they were quickest this morning and set the second fastest time of the last 4 days.
I believe we have a good potential on the car. There's a lot of things to do because it's a brand new car for us with concepts we haven't used in the previous year car, so it needs a lot of fine-tuning. on many areas, mechanical, aerodynamics, and so on. And this session, these 4 days, really are aimed to that work. Then from the next one in Barcelona, we try to go on more on the performance side, even though we know that the verdict, we'll have it only in Melbourne in mid-March.
I think it's too early to know about performance of the cars. I think during these 4 days we learn a lot of the difference with the car that we have this year. We have different philosophies, different concepts that we've been using in the last couple of years. So it has been a learning test for us. A lot of constant speeds to do, a lot of aerodynamic tests, a lot of mechanical tests, different suspension for us this year. We have different power steering that we've been adjusting every day a little bit to get the feeling, the right feeling that we had last year. So overall, I think it has been positive 4 days for us, understanding the car, but obviously with a completely new concept and a completely new design of the car, there is a lot of room to improve for us, and is what we need to focus in the next couple of tests.
Top to time charts in Formula 1 testing today, with Alonso putting in the quickest lap in Jerez. But the team believe headline times aren't important at this stage of the year.
During these 4 days, we learn a lot of the difference with the car that we have this year. We have different philosophies, different concepts that we've been using in the last couple of years. So it has been a learning test for us. Overall, I think it has been positive 4 days for us, understanding the car, but there is a lot of room to improve for us, and is what we need to focus in the next couple of tests.
I'm old enough Formula 1 to know that to be the fastest in the test doesn't mean anything. It doesn't give any point. It doesn't give any pole position. If you remember, or the people in the TV remember, last year the quickest car in Jerez was Rubens Barrichello, and Williams gained 4 points in 19 races. So time will tell.
Well, double world champ Sebastian Vettel took time away from testing today to take part in a promo for the new Sky Sports F1 HD channel. Vettel met with the directors before going through a photo shoot.
Let's just kind of step into it, and then the arms as across as your wrist. And action.
Well, he might be the best in the business at pointing the car in the right direction, but he needed direction in front of camera before getting it right.
Well, that's not.
Fernando Alonso topped the time charts in the final day of Formula 1 testing in the first session of 2012. The two-time world champion endured a frustrating day despite setting the quickest lap in Jerez after spending much of the day in the pits. Alonso was nearly a second faster than Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, but believes headline times aren't important at this stage of the year.
During these 4 days, we learn a lot of the difference with the car that we have this year. We have different philosophies, different concepts that we've been using in the last couple of years. So it has been a learning test for us. Overall, I think it has been positive 4 days for us, understanding the car, but there is a lot of room to improve for us, and is what we need to focus in the next couple of tests.
The teams running their 2012 cars. Lotus posted the quickest times on 2 of the 4 days. And whilst they remain cautious over their chances, test driver Jerome D'Ambrosio admits it is a promising start.
I think we had a good first feeling with the car, the 2 race drivers and the whole team. It's definitely a good way to start the season. Now everything, we have to be cautious obviously about what we read in the times, but definitely it's a positive. The car feels good, and that's the most important.
Double world champion Sebastian Vettel took time away from testing today to take part in a promo for the new Sky Sports F1 HD channel. Vettel met the directors before going through a photo shoot.
Let's just kind of step into it, and then the arms as across as your wrist. And action.
He might be the best in the business of pointing the car in the right direction. He did need a little direction in front of the camera before getting it right.